Hello Stampers, welcome to another Rubber Redneck video tutorial. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to make this fun little notepad. This I made for a guy theme, and I used family reunion to stamp dad. And here, otherwise you can make it for grandpa, uncle, or brother, or change it out for somebody else in your life as well. I used the stamp set called Now You're Cooking. It's actually one solid stamp with these images, and I cut mine apart so I would have each image individually. Now please note that if you do this, Stampin' Up! Will not replace that stamp as you have cut it apart. I'm going to show you how to make the base part first. You want to cut one piece of crumb cake cardstock at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Then you're going to score it at 3/4 and then score it at 1 inch. Once you have that scored, you want to fold over on your scored lines. And then you're going to cut one piece of Poppy Parade cardstock at 1/2 inch by 4 inches. I took the stamp from Now You're Cooking, inked it in Poppy Parade, and I stamped a couple times onto the cardstock until I had it completely covered. You want to apply some of your glue onto the back of the cardstock. And then you're going to place this right on your flap on the crumb cake here. And you want to do this step first for decorating. Then once you have that part done, you can fold it so it's got your little flap here. Then you want to cut some copy paper and cut it at 4 inches by 4 1/4. Now you want enough so that it fills your 1/4 inch gap almost all the way here. And then I took the stamp from Now You're Cooking, inked it in Poppy Parade, and stamped it onto the copy paper. Once you have that paper cut, then you want to place it onto that crumb cake cardstock, fold over your flap, and then you want to tap it so it is snug up against that score line in there. And then you're going to take your paper piercing tool. Now this will be a little, you have to use quite a bit of pressure to get through all these layers. So just take your paper piercing tool, and then you're going to press down through all those layers. And then once you have it started, what I did was I put my finger alongside the back there and kept working that paper piercing tool. Now be careful so you don't run that into your finger. And I'll show you in a minute why we use the paper piercing tool. Then once you have that pierced through those layers, what you want to do is take one of your metallic brads and have that ready to be, so you can put that in that hole right away. Hold firmly onto the copy paper as you pull the paper piercing tool out. Then take that little brad and run it through the hole. Now you'll notice there isn't a lot of room left there on that brad, so you want to pull the prongs apart and kind of bend them over. And then once you have the prongs somewhat bent over, then I just took the end of my paper piercing tool and I tapped it down so it was into the cardstock. Now you're going to set the other, you want to do the other brad, so make sure you line up all your copy paper so it's straight, and make sure your little flap here is straight as well. You don't want it crooked. You're going to take your paper piercer tool again, and you're going to pierce through all those layers. And then again, do what I showed you before. Work it through those layers. And the reason for using the brads is because when the copy paper is all gone, then you can just unhook the brads again and put more copy paper in there. So it can be used over and over. And then you're going to place another one of those metallic brads right through all those layers. And like I said, once you get the prongs bent to open enough, then just use the other end of the paper piercing tool to press them down. And that's the main part of the little notepad. And then we're gonna finish decorating it. And then when you use it, you can just write on it and then gently grab a hold of the paper and pull it right out of there to tear it. You want to use the Big Shot, and you want to use the scallop rectangle clear it die, and you want to die cut out a piece in the Domestic Goddess Designer series paper. Once you have your little rectangle, you're going to cut it in half, so then you'll have 2 pieces. So your little rectangle will be like this, and then cut it in half. Then you want to cut 1 piece of Domestic Goddess Designer series paper at 1/2 inch by 2 inches. Cut out the little banner on one end and then sponge crumb cake ink around the edges of both these pieces. Then you're going to glue the designer paper pieces together. And you want to put it so the tail overhangs on the left side, or right side, sorry. Then you want to take this stamp from Family Reunion. I used the Dad, ink it in Pool Party, and stamp it onto a piece of Whisper White cardstock. Punch it out with the large oval punch, and then sponge the edges with crumb cake ink, and then you're going to apply some glue onto the back of the oval. Then you want to place the oval onto the designer paper. Now be sure to leave a little bit of this designer paper showing across the bottom here, because we're going to wrap the baker's twine around that once it's all done. Again, I took the stamp from Now You're Cooking, inked it in Poppy Parade and then Crumb Cake, and then I took my stamping dimensionals, and since these are such smaller pieces, what I did was I just cut along the edge here and cut little pieces so that I could stick them onto the back. So place that little dimensional onto the back of the mitten, and then place that right over here onto the right-hand side. And then I took my glue and I just put a little bit of glue down here on the handle on the little spatula, and then I offset this onto the mitten here. Once you have that on there, then you want to take some Calypso Coral Baker's Twine and you're going to wrap that around. Now this is why you want the oval to be up a little ways, because you need some room to work there. And you're going to wrap that around all those layers twice. And once you have that wrapped around, what you want to do is just tie a knot. Or if you want, you can tie a bow too. I just did a knot. And once you get your knot tied, then you want to cut off the baker's twine from the roll. And do any little trimming you may need to do there. And then you want to take 2 stamping dimensionals and you want to put one on each end here. So place one on the right and one on the left. And then you can place that right in the center of your notepad. Now this is a fun little project. Like I said, you can change it out to fit anyone. For guys, you could do fishing, golfing, coffee, or change it out to fit somebody else in your life if you want. And then that completes the tutorial for the little notepad. Thank you for watching.